Hello, mortals. Hail, Caesar. Do you know who Caesar was? If you do, it's likely you know about his demise. On March 15th, 44 BC, he met his end in the Roman Senate at the hands of a group of senators. You've heard about it, right? There are even some rumors about the whole "beware the Ides of March" thing. But how did he get there? Was Caesar the hero of Rome who fought valiantly in Gaul and triumphed over Pompey, bringing the Republic to its greatest heights? Or was he an ambitious dictator who would have destroyed Rome if he hadn't been killed? This is the story of Julius Caesar, Part 2, where we answer the question, how did Caesar fall? Caesar was born into the first family of Rome. His father had once been dictator, and when he died, Caesar inherited his father's debts and his political career. He married into another prominent family, the Cornelii, and then used his considerable charm and silver tongue to make a name for himself. He wasn't particularly handsome, according to Suetonius, but women loved him anyway. And he was generous with money, though perhaps a bit too generous. In fact, after marrying Pompeia, the daughter of a wealthy senator, he put on the most lavish games in Roman history, lasting 10 days and costing a whopping 30 million sesterces. It's no wonder he ended up bankrupt again. But Caesar didn't care much about money. What he really cared about was power. So instead of paying back his debt, which by the way was supposedly 76 million sesterces, he ran for the consulship, the highest office in the Roman state. To run for the consulship, one had to be a patrician, which meant belonging to one of the old established families of Rome. The commoners were excluded from the consulship, which was good news for Caesar since the commoners hated him. You see, Caesar had pissed them off during the riots surrounding the Saturnalia festival when he sold grain to the Egyptians instead of giving it to them for free, as was customary. They also accused him of taking bribes when he was praetor. A decade later, they'd remember all of this when Caesar ran for consul. So what does he do? Run away to Asia Minor and force them to make him consul via military force? That's exactly what he did. Caesar crossed the Hellespont with 8 legions and marched on Rome. The Senate didn't dare resist. After all, Rome had been sacked just 50 years before. Plus, civil war was expensive. And so Caesar was made consul. He went on to conquer further parts of Gaul and return victorious to Rome. There he built the first public library and walked through the Forum reading books aloud. He reorganized the calendar and built roads. He created public works to employ the poor, especially the veterans of Marius's army who had nothing to go back to after the Civil War. The common folk loved him. However, the patricians still saw him as a threat because even though Caesar had given back the power to the Senate, he still held the title of dictator. He used his position to control the government and gain more power, thanks to his legion of loyal supporters known as the populares. Of course, not everyone supported Caesar, especially Cicero, the philosopher who hated Caesar's guts. When Caesar crossed the Rubicon River and marched on Rome, Cicero begged him to turn back or else face the consequences. But Caesar answered famously, "The die is cast." And he took his troops to Rome, ending the Republic once and for all. He was now master of the Roman world, but the Senate still controlled the provinces. And so he set about conquering them as well. The first obstacle was the Roman general Pompey the Great, who had been granted imperium over the entire Roman sphere of influence. Pompey was the darling of the Senate. In fact, he'd once single-handedly defeated a gladiator revolt and was considered invincible. Caesar, on the other hand, had a reputation as a brawler and a man of the people. He was considered the antithesis of Pompey, and so the two faced each other in a civil war in which Caesar showed what he was truly capable of. He and Pompey were evenly matched, with Caesar winning some battles and losing others. Still, the war dragged on. Caesar's forces were smaller than Pompey's, and even though he could raise new legions easily enough, many of his soldiers had followed him since the Gallic Wars and were exhausted. Even worse, the treasury was empty. Every year, Rome spent more money than it earned. So Caesar was forced to get creative. He went to Alexandria and seized control of the Egyptian fleet, which he used to launch a naval invasion of Sicily. At the same time, his men attacked the Pompeians in Greece and Asia Minor. As soon as Caesar reached Alexandria, though, he learned that Pompey had landed in Italy. Caesar sailed back immediately and raised an army, defeating the Pompeians once again and chasing them all the way to the gates of Rome. Then he entered Rome as a conqueror. There he indulged in debauchery and excess, having sex with Cleopatra while wearing only a red robe, as Plutarch tells us, or maybe having sex with both Cleopatra and her sister, as Cassius Dio claims. According to Plutarch, Caesar hosted feasts inviting 8 men of every type, bald, short, tall or short, fat or thin, ugly or pretty, young or old. He wanted to show Rome that he didn't care about appearances, only character. He laid siege to the Temple of Bologna and prostituted women inside. He gave citizenship to the Gauls and allowed women to own property. Most importantly, he instituted land reform, giving the poor land of their own, which they'd never had under the Republic. Still, the Senate hated him and plotted against him. One time, they sent assassins to kill him when he was in Spain, but he escaped. Then they tried again, this time sending assassins to kill him in Greece. Again, he escaped. The third time, however, Caesar wouldn't escape, nor would he listen to his advisers. Instead, he went to the Senate. It was here that the soothsayer warned him about the Ides of March, but Caesar ignored him. He went to the Senate meeting and sat down on a chair next to a statue of Alexander the Great. Then the conspirators surrounded him and shouted, "Beware, Caesar!" When Caesar realized what was happening, he tried to stand up, but it was too late. Casca stabbed him first in the shoulder, then in the chest. Soon, blood was pouring out of Caesar's wounds. As the other conspirators stabbed him, he kept asking, "What? What?" Finally, he fell to the ground, bleeding to death. According to Plutarch, he had been stabbed 23 times before he died. Apparently, Marcus Junius Brutus was the last to strike the fatal blow. We don't know for certain, but it seems that Caesar had once considered adopting Brutus as his son. And so, Brutus felt betrayed by Caesar's growing autocracy, which had pushed the Roman elite away. You can almost feel his anguish in Shakespeare's famous line, "Et tu, Brute," which probably never happened. Caesar was a hero to the commoners, but a tyrant to the elite. When Antony came to power, he quickly reversed Caesar's reforms, infuriating the commoners who went ahead and murdered him. This act was the start of the Roman Empire. Now you know how the Roman Republic became the Roman Empire. But do you know how the Roman Empire fell? Watch our video on the fall of the Roman Empire to find out. Do you think Caesar deserved to die? Let us know in the comments below. Also, a big thank you to our supporters. Would you like to support us? Click the link in the description to learn more. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to stay updated on our latest videos.